My name was Lena. I wasn't the kind of person who knew how to present my own tragedy beautifully. I only knew how to survive, quietly, on the inside, so nobody would see how much it hurt. Once, I thought that was strength. Then I realized. It was just a habit of surviving alone. That day the rain was unbearable. It fell steadily, stubbornly, like words you can't brush away. The wet asphalt glistened, and the city looked like it had been washed over with a merciless brush. I was walking to the post office, holding an envelope I'd received the night before. There was no return address. No sender's name. Just my phone number and one line. Don't rush. Listen. I laughed about it back then. Honestly. The laugh inside me sounded like a nervous breath. Of course. Another scammer. Another failed fortune teller playing on my pain. But when I opened that envelope at home, my chest went cold. Inside was a photograph. A bright summer day. Us, me and my husband, young. His smile was still safe then, without that shadow of exhaustion. We were standing by a lake, and the wind was playing with my hair as if life itself was asking. Look, isn't it beautiful? I recognized the photo immediately. And more than that, I remembered exactly where it was taken. Only one thing. We hadn't been to that lake in years. Next to it was a note, short, even, like it was written by someone who knew exactly what they would say. You will return. I will wait. And below the note, a date. Tomorrow's date. I didn't know what you will return meant. Didn't know who was waiting. Didn't know why someone was writing phrases to me that made you want to just collapse on the floor. But something woke up inside me, that old fear I'd buried along with the people who stopped calling. I chose not to panic. Instead, I went to my old notebook, the one on the shelf, like a museum piece of my past. There were small notes inside. Addresses, phone numbers, reminders for later. Among them, a number I thought was broken forever. It was Mikola's number. Mikola, that's what I called my back then. My husband. My life, which fell apart in one evening. He disappeared like people do in the worst stories, not from movies, but from real life. That reality where the police stay silent, where doctors can't diagnose bitterness, where relatives say, stay strong, and in their eyes you see the same thought. You've been grieving too long. I called him many times. And every time I heard the same thing. The subscriber is unavailable. And then I stopped calling. Not because I accepted it. But because I realized. If I kept going, I could break completely. That evening, I decided. If tomorrow someone brings such a phrase back into my life, maybe it's not someone, but someone from my past. I didn't believe in miracles. But I believed in patterns. Because a pattern is what remains even when life jumps off the rails. Tomorrow's morning was even darker than yesterday. Not because of the weather. But because I felt like somewhere in the air, an answer was already hanging. I left the house and immediately felt it. The world seemed to have someone turn down the sound. Like every voice became quieter. Like even the cars were driving slower. I arrived at the lake around 10. Somewhere in my head was a stupid thought. You don't even know what you're doing. But my feet didn't listen. They were doing what I'd put away in a box marked later. The lake was just like in that photo. The water sparkled under the cold sun, and around it stood trees that never give up. They survive winter, survive summer, survive people. On one of the trees a branch was swaying, like someone was gently touching it. I didn't notice the bench right away. The bench was closer to the shore. A woman was sitting on it. She was wearing a dark jacket, hands in her pockets. I couldn't see her face because she was facing away. I stopped. My throat went dry. You. My voice betrayed me, became thin. Who are you? The woman slowly lifted her head. Her eyes were tired. Not tired from work. Tired from waiting. And the moment she turned around, I felt like the earth wasn't so solid anymore. It was like someone had dug under the world. You came, she said. She didn't say it like a stranger. Not like some random person. She said it like we'd talked before. Like people who haven't seen each other in a long time and finally reached the end of their story. Do you know me? I felt my heart pounding against my ribs. I knew your husband, she said quietly. And I know you're still waiting. Waiting, that was like a slap. Because I didn't want anyone to see that there was still a little hope alive inside me. Mykola. I barely said his name. Is he alive? The woman was silent for a few seconds. I watched her swallow her words, like they were heavier than any truth. He was alive, she finally said. But not the way you think. And not the way you'd want him to be. I clutched the envelope in my hand. The corners of the paper dug into my skin, leaving little blue marks, like a reminder. You feel. You're not asleep. Can you at least tell me your name? I asked. I'm Olesya, she said. But you probably don't remember me. You weren't ready to remember back then. What does that mean? I didn't hold back, raised my voice. Olesya looked at the water. Do you remember the night he disappeared? I felt my body go cold. I remembered every minute. Every sound. Every light. Even the feeling in my own palms. They were cold, like they'd been washed in snow. That night Mykola came home late. He was put together, like he was in a hurry. Like something was pulling him out. He kissed my forehead and said, Don't worry. Tomorrow will be different. I'm deciding. I laughed to myself back then. And who's stopping you from deciding tomorrow? He got in the car and left. And then the calls started. First, the police. Then, some needed witnesses. Then, silence. I thought you were dead, I said slowly to Olesya. I thought so too, she answered quietly. But life doesn't like straight answers. Olesya took a phone out of her pocket. There was a photo on the screen. Look. She turned the phone toward me. It was Mykola, but not the one who sat in our home. He was exhausted. In his eyes, not just fear. There was guilt. Like someone who wasn't sure anymore if he had the right to his own eye. This. When? I breathed out. This was months after you started waiting, Olesya said. They brought him in. They kept him. I shook my head. Who? Olesya was quiet again. And from her silence I understood. She didn't want me to fall into the same pit where she once stood. Not one person. There was a system. There was money. People who buy silence and sell fear. Why? I felt my voice cracking. He didn't do anything. He did. Not here, not in this world. But he did. Mykola knew something, Olesya said. What? I couldn't hold it together anymore. He saw people disappearing. He accidentally ended up where he shouldn't have been. And he tried to stop it. But stopping doesn't mean winning, Olesya sighed. He wasn't a hero, Lena. He was a man who arrived late to his own act of courage. I sat down on the bench. My knees gave out. The lake was humming somewhere far away, like in your ear when it aches. So why did you? I swallowed my words. Why did you bring me this note? Where did you get this date? Olesya lifted her gaze. Because today you're finally going to hear the truth. From who? I was afraid that who would turn out to be one more pain. I can't say until there's a sign, Olesya answered. But I gave you the photo so you'd come. Because if you didn't come, you'd still be living in that same silence where he disappeared. How long did you wait? I suddenly realized that Olesya didn't look old. She looked like someone who'd lived through one eternity. Olesya closed her eyes. I waited until I was brave enough to call you by your name. We sat there for a few more minutes. The wind played with the edges of her jacket. Birds cried in the sky like it didn't matter. And then it happened. The sound of a car. It pulled up to the side slowly, like the driver was afraid, not so much of us, but of his own decision. I lifted my head. A man got out of the car. No, not just a man. This was a person I didn't want to see, because I knew. If he appeared, everything I'd ever buried inside me would come alive. He came closer slowly. He was wearing a dark hat. He kept his face down. But when he finally lifted his gaze, I felt like the world stopped for a second. Lena. He said. It was like he wasn't speaking. Like he was touching my name with his finger. I couldn't answer. Olesya stood up. Are you ready? She said to me. Not asking. Stating. Who are you? I pulled the question out, because I needed to hold on to something solid. The man took a step closer. I'm the one who was there, he said. When Mykola disappeared, I was there. When they held him. I brought food to that place. When they took him away. I signed the papers so it all looked legal. I trembled. You were an accomplice? I felt the words become knives. I was part of the machine. He dropped his eyes. And I won't be able to justify myself. But I brought you what he left behind. Olesya couldn't hold back and whispered. She won't be able to handle this. But she needs to know. The man took a small box from his pocket. It was wrapped in paper. His fingers were shaking. This. It was kept. For you. Mykola asked. I looked at the box like it could explode. Open it, he said. I took it. Inside was a ring. But it wasn't just a ring. On the inside was an inscription that Mykola once showed me. He made it quickly. So you always remember where your place is. Except I'd erased that inscription from my memory. Not on purpose. I just pretended that remembering would hurt too much. The inscription said. You will return. I will wait. I couldn't finish. He didn't come back, the man said. But he left you a chance to come back to life. Not as you were before. I breathed out like something heavy had left my chest. So where is he? I finally asked directly. Because all the hints were killing me slower than the truth. The man was silent. He's gone now, he said quietly. Those words didn't hit me, they dissolved into me. Like my body had become glass and cold was passing through it. I thought, no. Not out loud. But inside it was a scream. But he left evidence, the man added. And it's already started working. That's why Olesya was able to make sure you got this message exactly now. Who killed him? I lifted my eyes. Tell me. I can't name all of them. Some. The court will name. Some, already named. But you need to know. It wasn't random. It was revenge on people who were afraid he'd tell. Olesya took my hand. Her fingers were cold. Lena, she said. You don't have to forgive. You have to live. I burst out. How do you live when he was my life? Like this, Olesya said. Not without him. But beside him in your memory, but not in your fear. I wanted to scream, shake the air, break the whole world, so it would take this truth back. I stood on the shore and couldn't understand. Why am I crying so long if it's just words? And then I understood. I'm not crying because he died. I'm crying because for years I lived like he was somewhere nearby. I talked to empty chairs at the table. I talked to his jacket. I waited for a call that was never delayed. It was buried. And now, when the truth came, it became clear to me. I was keeping myself in chains. The lake was humming. I don't know what to do with this, I whispered. The man, the one who brought the box, stepped back. Mikola asked for one thing, he said. He asked you not to repeat his mistake. Which one? I couldn't help it. To repeat waiting instead of living, he answered. At home I couldn't eat or sleep. I was afraid of people, their questions, and their pity. Pity is the most dangerous feeling. It smears you across the ground until you start thinking. Maybe I really am nobody anymore. Late one evening my friend's daughter Sasha texted me. She didn't know the whole story. She knew only part of it. And maybe that's why she spoke more simply. Lena, if it's hard for you, can I bring you tea? I won't ask what happened. I'll just be there. I read the message twice. And something shifted inside me. Not my heart. Not tears. Understanding. I didn't have to be broken to receive warmth. I answered, yes. Thank you. Sasha came with a box of candy and a thermos. She was young. Her face had something that had long disappeared from mine, ease. She put everything on the table and sat across from me. I don't know how to help, she said. But I can listen. Listen? I smiled through my tears. That's the hardest thing. Because sometimes you want to scream. Scream if you need to, she said simply. I won't run away. I felt ashamed that I'd spent so much time thinking. If I'm hurting, I can't be normal for others. Pain, it turned out, doesn't forbid you from being human. It only asks you to slowly learn to live beside it. We talked almost all night. She didn't ask about my past, just small things. What I loved as a child, what movies I liked, what tea I drank. And at some point I caught myself thinking. I'm laughing. Not much. Quietly. But it was real laughter. A few weeks later I went for a walk in the park. I walked slowly, like someone finally learning to use their own body. I didn't think about Mikola all the time. And that didn't mean I was betraying him. It meant I wasn't going to keep paying for love with a lifetime prison sentence. From that day on, I started doing small things that once felt like not me. I signed up for a photography course. I planted roses by the house. I started opening windows even when I was afraid someone would steal my peace again. One morning I woke up to a message. Unknown number. I'd almost learned not to be afraid. So I answered. Lena? A man's voice said. I froze. Yes. My name is Volodymyr. You don't know me. But I know you. Your husband once helped me get out of trouble. And now. I want to pay the debt. Not with money. Just, I want to invite you to a meeting. We're starting a small fund. We help people who have been broken. I was silent. You don't have to agree, he hurried. I just want you to live. After that call I sat in the kitchen for a long time and looked at the ring. I took out Mikola's letter. Read it again. You will return. I will wait. But not in silence. I understood. Waiting doesn't mean stop yourself. Waiting means leaving the world a chance at your life. And I answered. Okay. I'll come. That evening I called Olesya. Listen, I said. You know what would make things easier for me? I don't know, she answered. I just knew I couldn't leave your silence without an answer. So what happens now? I smiled. What do I get now? Olesya thought. Now, she said, you get a life. Not instead of his. Beside his. I felt something inside me stop burning and turn into light. You came back, she whispered. I came back, I repeated. But not because he came back. Because you learned how to come back to yourself. The lake came to me in a dream again. But this time it wasn't a place of death. It was a place where I received a key. And the key isn't to a door back into the past. The key is to a door into tomorrow. The end, but not the finish. A few months passed. I still get sad sometimes. Sometimes at night my heart reminds me. You lost him. And then tears come on their own. But now I know my tears aren't just pain. They're also memory. Memory that doesn't kill. The morning I first felt I could live, I walked out on the balcony. The wind touched my hair. I looked at the sky and whispered. I came back. And there was no answer in the air. But there was one in my actions.